President Trump is threatening to obliterate Iran's critical energy infrastructure if Tehran does not agree to reopen the Strait of Hormuz shortly. The president took to social media saying, quote, the United States of America is in serious discussions with a new and more reasonable regime to end our military operations in Iran. Now, Tehran has downplayed such talks between the two countries. But according to the White House, what is being portrayed in public by the Iranian regime isn't what is exactly happening behind the scenes.
Their best move is to make a deal, or else the United States Armed Forces has capabilities beyond their wildest imagination, and the president is not afraid to use them.
The U.S. is ramping up its troop presence in the region. The Pentagon has already sent hundreds of special operations forces to the Middle East as the White House considers putting boots on the ground to take over Iran's energy infrastructure. CBS News Pentagon reporter Eleanor joins me now. So what are we hearing from Tehran about these so-called serious talks between the U.S. and the new regime?
Lindsay, Iran's foreign ministry today denied any negotiations with the U.S., saying the only thing the government has received is a set of proposals it received from the U.S. through a mediator. That's quite different than what we heard from President Trump this morning on Truth Social when he posted that there are serious discussions now ongoing with Iran. The White House today, when asked about that discrepancy, did describe it as Iran saying one thing publicly and quite another privately. Obviously, President Trump is really saying two things quite publicly, even as he's threatening to bomb and obliterate Iran's critical infrastructure. He's pushing for these negotiations. At the same time, the Pentagon is continuing to send U.S. forces into the region to add to the more than 50,000 already there.
And Iran says it's ready for the arrival of U.S. troops. So who's there? Who's potentially going? And what might these troops be mobilized for?
Well, 2,500 Marines are coming from California. They're still a few weeks away, but when they arrive, they'll join the 2,500 Marines that arrived over the weekend and the hundreds of special forces now in the region that we reported on this morning. Those forces are there, according to the White House, to present options to President Trump for how he decides to take next steps in Iran. Some of the missions these forces are capable of doing are limited ground raids. Think securing Iran's southern flank to try and reopen the Strait of Hormuz, going after the highly enriched uranium deep inside Iranian territory, or capturing Karg Island, that crucial hub for Iran's exports of oil. All of those missions are more doable now that those forces are coming in, but are still considered high risk because of the weapons Iran still has.
What sort of damage would strikes on energy sites in Iran cause for the country and the region?
Well, first, it would almost certainly make life more miserable for the 90 million people in Iran, including the civilians who could potentially lose electricity and clean water. One of those specific targets, again, is Karg Island. Destroying the oil infrastructure there could have significant impacts on the global economy long after the war is over, which is why the U.S. may consider capturing it or seizing it to use as some sort of bargaining chip to force concessions out of Iran while preserving the infrastructure. There would still be impacts on the economy, but maybe for a shorter time period.
Okay, Eleanor Watson, thank you. CBS News White House reporter Erin Navarro joins us now. So, Erin, the U.S. is ramping up its presence there. Ed O'Keefe asked White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt if the president is trying to end or trying to intensify the conflict. Let's hear what she said.
The president is focused on achieving the objectives of Operation Epic Fury. With respect to forces that are on the ground in the Middle East, it's the job of the Pentagon to create maximum optionality for the commander-in-chief. It does not mean the president has made any additional decisions. Again, he remains focused on ensuring that the Pentagon continues to achieve the objectives of the operation that was launched 30 days ago, and we're well on our way to doing that.
So maximum optionality, not something in our everyday vernacular. What does that mean? And what did the secretary say about how long this war would last?
Well, it includes the military options that Ellie just laid out, the seizing of Karg Island, that crucial oil export depot for Iran, or the more targeted use of special forces to seize Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium. But there's also this option of diplomacy that President Trump and the White House maintain is still there. They maintain a more optimistic tone about where it's heading. They believe that that has been created because of the new leadership in Iran that has been caused by the U.S.-Israeli strikes, killing the former former supreme leader in that country. The president said today that they are a quote, more reasonable group as part of these talks, even though Iran's foreign minister has maintained that these negotiations are not happening at the level that President Trump says they are. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the military objectives for what the U.S. is doing in Iran, Operation Epic Fury, will be achieved in a matter of weeks, not months. That's what he told Al Jazeera in an interview today, as he is looking to pressure G7 allies, European allies, to do more in the U.S. conflict with Iran.
And so wouldn't threatening to strike key infrastructure in Iran if a deal isn't reached essentially further anger or drive up prices, further anger people here at home?
We already saw the possibility of those strikes as reports about them developed over this weekend, caused an overnight spike going into today for the price of a barrel of oil, about $116. That's up more than 50% since the start of this operation. There's also, of course, the security risk with any military action and the political risk that we're now seeing. There's a new Associated Press poll that found 62% of respondents disapprove of putting U.S. boots on the ground. So there are economic, security, and political risks in a potential use of military force.
Aaron Navarro, thank you.